Hey, awesome. Hey, thanks for joining us again here at the Two Fish Technology Studios. Well, I call it a studio today because we're all set up to live stream, but it's the shop. Behind us, we've got Jason, who is the real tech around here and keeps everything running smoothly. He's working on a couple projects. Josh Knighton, the owner of Two Fish, is here with me again. My name's Caleb Poole from Fox 88 Consulting, and we want to continue our HIPAA discussion. This is something that we feel very strongly about bringing you the proper information, making sure that if your business is under the certifications for HIPAA or other certifications, that you know about them, that you know the details and how to meet those certifications. So, Josh, thanks for being with me again.
Yes, sir.
I'm enjoying our Tuesdays here. I want to read off a couple things. I'm going to use my notes quite a bit today. I want to read off some of the issues around why the HIPAA reform is taking place. So the healthcare sector has become increasingly vulnerable to cyber attacks in recent years. From 2018 to 2023, reports large breaches resulting from hacker and ransomware attacks increased by 102%. The number of individuals affected rose by 1,002%. In human terms, this means that millions of Americans have had their most sensitive health information exposed. And according to industry research, 67% of healthcare organizations experienced some type of ransomware attack in 2024. That's up 34% from where it was in 2021. Josh, the threat environment just keep getting worse.
Yeah, for sure. And it's not just HIPAA clients either. So it's or HIPAA, customers. It would be even just small to medium business across the board. It's really going up. I think the stat for just SMBs in general, it's like 73% of SMBs were hit with some sort of cyber attack in the last year.
Yeah, and I can understand why we don't hear a lot about that, because it's got to be embarrassing. It's your business reputation, and you don't want your clients to know that something like that's happened. But in these regulatory environments, and I think Texas might be one of them, you must disclose if you've had a ransom event or a hacking event within 72 hours.
Yep.
Does that give enough, adequate time for someone to have the event and be able to see where the holes in their security are? How does someone come back up from something like that?
If you don't have the proper controls in place to begin with, sometimes it's weeks or months before you really see the true fallout of what happened. And so if you're required to disclose to your customers in 72 hours, you can't really even paint the proper picture of what happened.
So in your mind and in your experience, a small or medium-sized business, an SMB, or has an event, what are some of the first things that they should do? Or how does that event kind of unfold so that you can best help them?
Yeah, well, it depends on the event, right? So one scenario would be like a phishing email or something like that, and that personal information is disclosed that way or leaked that way. Of course, that's a very different thing than if like you got hit with ransomware, for instance, right? Because that's a whole other animal. So it kind of depends on the attack or the kind of breach that happens. But really, you want to stop the bleeding first, just like any kind of disaster, right? So you want to stop the bleeding first, which again, if you don't have the proper controls in place, you don't have the proper security measures, you can't. And so you want to be able to track down like kind of what the breach was or how far it got out.
So you could be just completely lost to what's going on, how to stop it, how to fix it, if you don't have the proper things in place.
Yeah. We I had a discussion with Robert earlier, our sales manager, and we were talking about QuickBooks Online. So there's this new new thread out there where scammers are sending emails out. Looks almost exactly like it's from QuickBooks, and it asks you they send you a link, says, you know, your credentials, your login's expired, you have to log in again, which they will never email you to tell you that, by the way. But they email this out, so you click the link. It looks exactly like the QuickBooks online login, and you give it your credentials, and they capture your credentials at that point. And you just get a thanks, you're good now kind of message back. And then at that point, they have your credentials and they have something on your computer. And so whether you have desktop or online, they have your login, and they will be actively monitoring your computer, and you have no idea. If you don't have some sort of like EDR or something like that that's monitoring those things, you have no idea they're even doing it.
See, and that was going to be my question. Okay, so what would you tell someone who maybe doesn't know that, or you've got to lead them through the proper tools and the proper way to use those tools to best help them? And that's what hopefully that's what we're doing here.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to hear you say, well, the events really are two different types of events. Hacking via ransomware, or maybe I shouldn't say it that way, just a ransomware event versus a phishing event. And so I might show my own inadequacy in knowing about this, but I wouldn't have thought that those would be two different types of events to triage in different ways.
Yeah, and there's multiple. So it could be an insider threat, like maybe you have a disgruntled employee, or even an employee that accepts a bribe or something like that. They leak information that way. It could be just a literal bad actor. So somebody, like me, that could sit there with a pineapple outside your office.
He's not a bad actor, though.
Yeah, but somebody with that skill set, right? They can sit outside your office with a laptop and a pineapple. This is what we call the pineapple, right?
Hacker
it's a little tool, yeah. And they can sit there and get on your network and, kind of sniff around, see what they can get into, stuff like that. There are all sorts of different scenarios that you have to really be careful and kind of be ahead of and stay ahead of. And that's why we try to provide a layered approach to our security. So we're not just saying, you have you have antivirus on your computer, so you're good, or whatever. Like, you have to look at the network, you have to look at the network traffic, you have to look at the firewalls, you have to look at like all of the things as a whole to really be able to secure those kind of environments. So.
Yeah. And that's I think it gets a little overwhelming for an SMB owner, and many of them, they don't believe that their size makes them unattractive to a hacker, but small, medium-sized businesses are that low-hanging fruit that is easy to get to. Let's talk a little bit about the U.S. as a prime target. I've heard you say that if cybercrime were its own economy, it would be the third largest economy in the world behind the U.S. and China.
Yeah, and in 2026, it's actually staged to eclipse the GDP of China, which is kind of crazy to think about.
So that amount of just internet traffic that has to happen in order for these bad actors to be going out there. I've got a highlight here that says 65% of global cyber attacks targeted the U.S. since 2022, highlighting its position as a major focus for cyber criminals.
So that's actually only gone up.
I would assume that all of these will just only go up, and I don't think that it's a key industry. Right. It's anybody is susceptible to this type of crime.
Yeah. Finance, healthcare, manufacturing, retail. It doesn't matter what you do. Insurance, like they're after you. So.
And insurance is one that, I think insurance is a deeper subject than many people give it credit for. Sure. Similar to cybersecurity, and if you are oblivious to the ins and outs or how your policy works, you're just leaving an open door for cybercrime.
Yeah, for sure. So, talking about cyber insurance, if you don't have a cyber insurance policy, I go out and get one now. We can even connect you with some folks who are really good at writing those policies, but a policy is only the cybersecurity policy or cyber insurance policy is only good or as good as the controls that you implement, because and we've seen cases like this time and time again where you have maybe a $5 million coverage, or in one case in Amarillo there was $100 million coverage over multiple policies. They did get breached, and they didn't have the controls in place that the policy was requiring, and so they only got paid out like 20% of their total policy.
And that's where you have to know what's in your policy. You have to be able to figure that out, and that's part of what brings us back to HIPAA in that regulatory world. Is if you're missing a piece in there that you don't know needs to be implemented, your insurance may not pay out. You may not be able to meet those certifications, and it's just going to, if you're talking about a rural clinic, the impacts could be, very large because of it. The hidden costs of cyber attacks. The average cost of a data. Now, you just told us about one that I'm sure that $100 million policy, they needed every bit of it probably.
Actually, a little bit more, I think, if I remember the numbers right.
I wouldn't think that you'd spend more than you had to on something like this. We may see people start to do it, but the average cost of a breach in Amarillo, Texas, our research shows it's close to $120,000.
Yeah, that was in 2024. So yeah, it's a costly event for sure.
It could take down a business. Medium-sized businesses in Amarillo, we're talking 15 plus employees. Their costs could exceed $1 million in downtime. Josh just told us. I mean, you told us that it could take a few months. How long could a business stay down? And I think that's where this type of education, this type of environment where we have these open discussions where, hey, you've seen that I'm not the expert. That's why I'm here with Josh, and he keeps up on top of that stuff. So, a business really has to be in tune with their numbers behind the scenes and what their liabilities are in order to make that decision too.
Yeah, we can actually help read and interpret policies too. We've done that before for a few other customers currently, and so yeah, it's just as simple as I'll buy you lunch or coffee, and we'll just talk about it and go through your stuff, and just make sure that you're covered. And I'll say this too. Most businesses think they're like 90% covered, when in reality they're like 10% covered. And because you don't have someone who's in it all the time or makes it their livelihood to actually go in and say, let me evaluate what's actually going on.
I think that's a really good point. I mean, if you're in it too close, you may not see those gaps.
For sure.
You're too familiar with your own business to see some of those risks. And that's, I mean, we could see here on the board that everything that Two Fish has available to help their clients, and I don't know. I'm kind of at a loss because it gets a little bit much to think about how much could be at stake for someone, how little they may know about it, and just the need to reach out and grab that expertise.
Yeah, there's a real false sense of security out there that's pretty scary for guys like me, because we don't look just at like your IT as a separate part of your business. We try to look at your business as a whole when we're talking about these things. So we actually help you plan ahead for not just the IT part of it, but we help you plan ahead for downtime, data loss, the reputational damage.
That's
all of those things can really significantly impact your ability to recover from whatever attack you may have, and it makes that cost go up because even just the reputational damage alone can be enough to shut you down, and most people don't think of it that way. So
I wouldn't have thought about it that way until getting into this environment and having these discussions with you, and I think that really continues to highlight the problem and continues to give us a reason why regulatory environments are tightening around cybersecurity. When Health and Human Services conducted audits of healthcare organizations that would be within that regulatory environment, they found that nearly 94% of them would fail to implement the right risk management tools and didn't have that risk management in place. And if we're seeing 1,000% increase in the amount of people's data that's lost out on the internet.
Yeah.
It's a real problem. It's a real problem.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. There's a lot of misinterpretation too. So I'll say this, like, we've been talking a lot about the proposed changes to the HIPAA requirements, and more than likely they're gonna go into effect. You can misinterpret something too. So, they say network segmentation. Well, your office manager may or may not know what that actually means. Or what's a penetration test versus a vulnerability scan. Just things like that, or how encryption at rest or in transit and things like that. Like it is more and more becoming a technical field, and technical requirements only. So there are still changes to like your processes and procedures, tabletop testing, risk assessments, which we also help you with. But it's really just more of a there is a big problem with just a lot of misinterpretation of like the things that do need to be addressed. And so that is also a potential risk that you face, because if you're doing one thing and you think that covers all of the things when in reality it doesn't, that's a pretty big problem too.
That's where I think the pen testing and the reason why they're implementing such stringent and more often pen testing is to make businesses and make these clinics aware that they have an issue. I really want to continue to talk over the HIPAA issue, and I feel like we'll do that at length here on the Two Fish. What are we calling it? A show? The Two Fish Show? I don't know what we're calling it yet.
I don't know. We'll have Jason run us a little theme song.
Hey, or if you've got any ideas, hey, post them in our in the comments. We want to turn this into something where it's interactive, where we have comments that are coming in so we can answer those. As you can see, I run out of things to say, so that's why I have to have Josh here to keep me on task. But the problem isn't going to go away.
Yeah.
How does someone know that they have enough tools or the right tools? I mean, again, that just keeps coming back to you need someone who's an expert in the field.
Yeah, and I'll say, like, we can have all the tools in the world, but there's going to be some 12-year-old kid living in his mom's basement that figures some way out around it, right? So we can't guarantee, 100% protection, right? But what we can guarantee is that we're putting our best foot forward, we're staying on top of things, and we're making incremental progress. So that's another thing that I think is really important, because the requirements in the HIPAA, the new proposed changes, they say an annual pen test, a twice a year vulnerability scan. That's really not enough. So like our approach, just because we really do care about your business and not just checking the box for the regulator, for the regulation, we try to do it monthly at least, especially on like the penetration side of things, because there are new vulnerabilities that open up. There are new security patches and things that come out every month, every week, from like Microsoft and other vendors that are addressing these things. And so if you're pen testing once a month, whether we're your IT or not, it holds us accountable. It holds your security provider accountable, because it does stay on top of those new threats, because our tool does get updated almost in real time to the things that come available. And they're even working on developing their own vulnerabilities and finding things too, which is really cool. So yeah, our approach, like I said, is just a more diverse approach. We're trying to hit it from every angle that we can, and we're just trying to stay ahead of the things and the environment as it changes. Because once a year is just, you might satisfy the requirement, but in reality, you're not really protecting your business.
And I think that's a really great way to think about it. There's two levels here. One is checking the box and making that certification, hitting that mandate. The other one is doing what's best for your business health and your clients' information.
Yeah.
And when we're talking about something with HIPAA, clinics, hospitals, I mean, we're already talking about serious people who want to do the job. It's just really focusing on, there is as many people that care about doing that job right. There's a whole world out there that, well, not a whole world, but there's a lot of crime and criminals that are trying to penetrate that. For the testing and monitoring, the new HIPAA requirements would be vulnerability scanning every 6 months, annual penetration testing, annual compliance audits, and regular effectiveness reviews of security measures. And so some of that, like you said, it is ambiguous. It's vulnerability scanning and penetration testing. What are those differences?
Really, from a practical standpoint, like a penetration test is checking your security from the outside in, and a vulnerability scan would be like checking your security from the inside. It's kind of the real high level way to look at it, and we can definitely do both. Our vulnerability tool is actually real time, so we can run a one-time test, like maybe monthly or whatever, but then we have a tool that's actually running in real time also to just kind of monitor for those known threats, which is kind of a unique way to do it too.
Now, do any of these tools affect the performance of the machinery that they're on?
No, it's all completely separate. So inside we deploy a piece of software or a device, depending on the size of your network, to actually handle that on its own. It doesn't slow your network down. It's really lightweight, so you don't even know it's running. And we actually try to do it during the busiest time of the day. So when we do these tests, we don't wait until after hours. We do it when you're at busiest day, busiest time of the week, things like that, because we try to get the best picture of what's going on your network. So yeah, that's our approach.
Well, threats are rising, laws are tightening. Well, I think we're always going to be talking about threats are rising.
Yeah.
And the laws, whether you believe in a regulatory environment or not, if your business is not effectively keeping itself or even its clients' information safe, that's you got to know who you're doing business with, and if you have to be mandated, you've got to keep up with it. Non-compliance for these mandates in HIPAA can reach up to $50,000 per violation,
and you're guaranteed to get audited again. So that's also not fun.
If you're not looking for fines or being audited, you might look for Two Fish Technology.
There you go. Man, we need to put that on a t-shirt.
That's
good. Yeah.
Join us again, and maybe you'll get a free t-shirt out of it.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, Josh, thanks for coming up and visiting with us again. I know you're always busy, but I've never seen you too busy for your clients. I've never seen you too busy that you wouldn't help answer a question to someone who's really looking for how to better their security, how to better their network, and I really appreciate that. Like you always say, that's where Two Fish's heart is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, our heart is really to take care of the business as a whole, and really be there for our customers, not just technology wise, but just we pray for our customers, we do those things too, and so we just have a unique company, a unique approach, and not trying to get cheesy and market on that, but that's just who we are and how we do things.
Well, I think it's real, and I think that I hope that those of you who may be watching us can see that, and we hope that you come back and join us again. Like, subscribe, drop some comments if you're not live with us today. Drop a comment if you have a question, and we'll see it, and we'll get back to it on the next one. But that's what we really want to do. We want to have an interactive time where we can help people get them good information and make them more secure.
Yes, sir.
Josh, thank you.
Yes, sir. Thanks, Caleb.
All right.
Appreciate it.